Hey, welcome back. You're in the C-Space studio, sponsored by Salesforce here at CES 2023. We've got a great Salesforce guest in the studio with us, Mark Matthew, co-founder of the Web3 studio at Salesforce. Welcome to your C-Space studio.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So Web3 studio at Salesforce, it probably requires a few definitions just to unpack that and make sure we're talking about the same thing. So maybe first Web3, what is your definition of Web3?
So Web3 is really that new era of the internet, really underpinned by technology, which is blockchain and smart contract, but which moves us from what used to be Web 1, which was the internet of read. You could access information, but you couldn't interact with it. That's the Googles of this world. To Web 2, which was more the interaction, so read and write with content and with people. So that's the age of social platforms. And now Web 3 is more this era of ownership. You can read, write, but also own digital objects, things, data, on the internet. And that's fascinating because it's not only a new era of the technology, but it's also a decentralized, trustless, permissionless technology and even movement. I often talk about it as a movement that is happening just right now.
What does Web3 Studio then look like inside of Salesforce?
So Salesforce has been working on Web3 technologies, for a few years. I'm not an engineer myself. I come more from the world of business and brands and marketing. And I discovered in my role of strategic transformation and innovation for brands, I discovered indeed that we were working on Web3 technologies. And with a few other people, we decided to co-found a Web3 studio to prepare for the products that Salesforce would eventually release around Web3, NFTs, wallets, and so on, and build a go-to-market capability, do pilots with quite a few customers, build the ecosystem so that we can actually go into this bold new world.
So I imagine some of the things you're working on may be top secret, but what can you tell us about what is now and what is coming soon? What kind of technologies are actually out in the world that this is produced?
Well, what's interesting is that initially it all started indeed with crypto, and then there was the huge movement last year around NFTs, and everybody thought, is this going to last? Is this not going to last? In reality, the hype and the short-term, people looking to make short-term money is kind of over as the bubble burst, of the internet, of the Web 1, happened in the past. And what's fascinating is that now we are at the beginning of, I believe, where true infrastructure innovation is going to happen. And for Salesforce, what it means is, well, what do? We do CRM, and CRM is going to be, something also with this new set of zero-party data, of this new relationship. Really, we consider Web3 to be, in a way, a new relationship, a new way of engaging, with people. The big difference is that those people are no longer just consumers. They want to be co-creators, co-innovators, collaborators, and co-beneficiary. And that's going to be a radical shift in business and marketing models.
So would it be fair to say you're building systems to enable your customers to allow their customers to have more ownership in the things that are being kind of co-created there?
Totally.
Is there any kind of tension, I don't even know if tension is the right word, but is there something interesting about the idea of Web3 being decentralized, which you mentioned earlier, but you're incubating this within obviously a large tech organization, a very well-established tech organization like Salesforce, obviously very innovative, but it's still a central organization in some way. Is there some kind of tension there?
Well, the way we've actually built even our own Web3 studio team is very decentralized. So we've tapped into the organization across industries and geographies to build a capability that actually is almost acting like a DAO, within Salesforce for Web3. But what's interesting is that indeed I often say decentralization is a movement because it goes, especially with those Gen Z, that new generation, it meets the requirement or the frustrations of a whole generation of people who have a very different relationship with trust, therefore with brands, with products, but also services and experiences, with ownership. I find fascinating that in today's world, people want to, they don't want to own a car, but they want to own their data. Who would have thought that it's more important to own your data than to own your car?
One of the things that we've seen a lot of in the last year, even just the last few months, is AI examples of generating content, generating visuals, generating text. Are you thinking about some of that in the work that you're doing?
So definitely AI is going to be one of the key elements of Web3. And when I think about Web3, I think about all those technologies that somehow are emerging and that are technologies that younger generations are using to interact not with brands, but initially with one another. ChatGPT is one of them. Yeah. So, because I assumed you would talk to me about AI, I asked that question to ChatGPT.
Okay.
Is ChatGPT using AI to create its own solution? Of course, ChatGPT said yes, but what was fascinating, the last comment in the answer was actually, nevertheless, it's still important that there is human supervision because sometimes it needs some editing and proofreading by real people. I thought that was a very nice comment from ChatGPT, from an AI.
It's nice that the AI is still giving a pat on the head to the humans that birthed it.
I think as long as the AIs, think human, are still important, we're fine.
Do you find that you're kind of dealing in this world of sometimes things that you're working on seem crazy, maybe they seem crazy to you, maybe they seem crazy to others, sometimes it seems like what you're doing is right on the cutting edge. How do you think about that? Are there things that you're working on that actually do seem crazy to some people, but you think are actually going to come to pass?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, Web3 is going to go away. Just like, a lot of people thought the internet was not necessary because you could, watch a football game on the TV or, listen to it on the radio or, buy products in a store. And today we have embraced it. So I think what's interesting is nobody has seen yet the killer app, the 1,000 song in your pocket of Web3. And I think that's going to emerge in the probably 2 or 3 years to come. And it could already be here behind our nose. For instance, Starbucks Odyssey program could be the killer app. It could be the new way you build loyalty program using Web3 technology without talking about crypto, without talking about NFTs. But engaging people in collaboration in the journey of collective ownership and rewards.
And how have you collaborated with your customers on this? You're talking about a decentralized organization of presumably Salesforce employees, but I imagine there's a much broader collaboration that has to happen. And what lessons can you teach us from that to others who might want to do a Web3 studio in their organization?
It's a very good question. There are several topics around that which we often talk with customers. First of all, Web3 always happens from the ground up. There's always a group of people that are more immersed into it, that do it in their private life. Those are the people you want to empower. But they also need to be covered, empowered from the top. If there is no mandate from the CEO or really from the very top of the organization, they will not be able to drive the change. So it's really both the bottom up and the top. And then there is, of course, because it reinvents marketing and commerce and the intersection of it, the CMOs, play a role, the CTO, but legal. We are rethinking when we talk about Web3. We're thinking IP, and that requires legal conversation. We are rethinking, financial participation with your customers and with all the other ecosystem participants. That requires conversation with the CFO. So it's really an ecosystem of conversations.
Just to throw out a hypothetical, I'm thinking of this off the top of my head. I'm a tech executive. I'm in someone's Salesforce database. I get contacted because they want to do some kind of a demo with me. Is there a future now where I can kind of co-collaborate with that person who's contacting me and take some kind of ownership or benefit from the product because I, as the person being demoed, am somehow part of the building of that thing, and there's a way to tokenize that?
I think it's a very good question. I think that the tokenization, of anybody who contributes is on the table. So I would love to talk about that in a few years' time.
I'm just spitballing ideas here, but I really appreciate your willingness to engage in this conversation and talk about the future and the cutting edge of Web3 at Salesforce.
Thank you.
Mark Matthew, SVP and co-founder of the Web3 studio at Salesforce. Thanks for joining us here in the C-Space studio, sponsored by Salesforce, in fact.
Thank you.
And that's it for this episode, our interview here in the C-Space studio. But more great conversations from CES 2023 are just ahead. I'm James Kotecki. Keep it here. Welcome back. You're in the C-Space studio, sponsored by Salesforce here at CES 2023. I'm James Kotecki, joined by Melanie Rios, the CEO of Novus Media. Welcome to the C-Space studio.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So Novus, when you're introducing yourself to someone here at CES, how do you explain who you are and what you do?
Well, we say that we are an independent media agency that specializes in planning and buying local media. And one of the things that we've noticed while we've been here at CES and even prior to coming is that there have been a lot of advancements in technology in the way that data is harnessed, in the way that we can do precision targeting. But the one thing that stands out to us as an agency is that the importance of geography continues to be overlooked. And as a media agency, that's the one thing that differentiates us. We actually use the way that we evaluate our customers' data, whether it's first-party data or third-party data, or human behavior information or results information, we always do it through the lens of geography. And what we found by doing that, regardless if our clients are in a certain industry versus another, or they have different types of business outcomes, is that geography can actually be an ultimate connector between all media channels. And it can be harnessed in a really unique way to create the optimal omni-channel program. And so while we've been here and we've been talking about ourselves, we've been on the lookout and we'll continue to be on the lookout for tools, technology, and techniques that can be leveraged at a hyper-local level to drive breakthrough outcomes for clients.
And when we talk about geography, we're talking about the United States, the entire world. Where are you playing?
All the way down to the zip code level, or if you're in Canada, we call them postal codes.
Okay.
Yes.
Are people sometimes surprised? Maybe you said advertisers or people are tending to overlook geography. Are people sometimes surprised by how different geographies are within regions people might assume are more homogenous than they actually are? Tell me a little bit more about how geography can kind of tell us different things about people.
Sure. Well, we've been studying geography for 20 years. We started off in the print media space, and that is an industry that can be or could be bought at the zip code level. And what we found our clients were most surprised about is that we could take an existing media buy and just by harnessing the information at a zip code level, we could reduce budgets by 20, 30, 40%, and we could increase sales. And those two things don't really seem like they would go together. What we've done over the last 5 years is taken that practice and harnessed new tools and new technology, and we've applied it to all media. And again, our clients are surprised that we're able to blend in a different way in one geography versus another geography and still get results that are positive for both, even though our approaches end up being quite different.
So here we are, it's CES 2023. How many CESs have you been to?
This is my first one.
Well, welcome to CES.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been really fun.
What is your message here to folks? What are you talking to people about here?
Just what I've talked about now is geography, and that it's something that we feel continues to be overlooked and that there are unique ways to harness it. And we're investing time, money, resources, and people into harnessing the power of it in the way that we go to market on behalf of our clients.
As you look at the year 2023, obviously you're kind of painting a picture of the direction that you're going and that you want people to go. Are there specific opportunities that you're thinking about for the year ahead?
We do have some opportunities that we're working on right now, and we think we're going to continue to stay focused on. We've been transforming our business for the last 4 or 5 years, focusing primarily on print media. Now we're in multimedia. And we've had an amazing growth trajectory over the last few years. And you're going to expect growing pains to come with that, as most organizations do. But many companies, when they're in massive growth, find themselves so focused on growth, they forget to look at the rest of the organization. And so that opportunity for us has been looking to drive efficiency with our scale. And at the beginning of 2022, we kicked off a project called Project Half, or an initiative called Project Half. And that was focused on using our internal tools, data, and advanced reporting to look at our end-to-end processes to uncover redundancies, low-value work, where we could leverage platforms, media platforms, and project management platforms to reduce those areas of work that were creating problems for the company. What happened was that we reduced our overtime hours by 26%. And the benefit of that is not just for the company, but it created a little bit of a relief for our employees, and that gets passed on to the customers as well. So we'll stay focused on that.
A lot of marketers, brand leaders, agency folks here at CES, not only at CES, but here at C-Space specifically.
Right.
Were there any kind of specific killer things that you discovered in that process, counterintuitive things that you were able to pull out or change that really made those differences?
The one thing that has surprised me is how often full funnel marketing continues to be a debate, whether we should be focused on the top of the funnel or brand marketing or the bottom of the funnel performance marketing. It is such an old debate, and the fact that we're still talking about it surprised me. And one of the things that dawned on us is that when the pandemic hit, most of our clients went straight to performance marketing because sales was king, right? If you weren't generating sales during the pandemic, you might not have a business when you came out of the pandemic. Yeah. Now, fast forward, looking back at the last year, many of our clients, as we know, other marketers are seeing a deterioration in their brand awareness metrics because they went from one guardrail all the way to the other one. And no one, again, this is a surprise being here, no one has really figured out the solution to find the right balance between the two. Internally, we've been working on developing and optimizing software that would allow us to use industry awareness metrics, blend them with response curves, and be able to help our clients navigate that debate as well as ourselves.
So that's an interesting trend. Are there other trends that you're thinking about or looking at or talking to clients about?
I don't know that we're talking about this trend specifically with clients today, but I think it will be an active and ongoing conversation over the next few years, and that's around artificial intelligence. Yes. That to me is fascinating, and even more so generative AI, where you've got technology that's generating new content. And specifically ChatGPT, which came out, I think, back in November, and they amassed over 1 million users in the first week, I think speaks to how incredibly powerful it is and how it can be harnessed within your organization and within your clients' organizations. And as we talk to clients about keeping costs down and driving efficiencies, for them, that's going to have to be part of the conversation. I don't think AI is going to necessarily change our jobs, but it's going to change the way that we work, and we can pass that value on to clients we support.
Is it fair to say that if you're targeting by different geographies, you could have something like a ChatGPT, right?
Yes.
Different things for different people in different
Absolutely.
geographies.
Yeah.
What are we talking about if we are meeting here in 2028? That would be 5 years from now.
Yeah.
CES 2020, first of all, that seems like the distant future. I think we'll just pause at that. And thinking 5 years ahead, thinking just a couple years ahead is challenging, right?
Yeah.
But if we're thinking 5 years ahead, which as a leader you have to do on some level, what are you thinking about?
Wow, I think when we come back here in 5 years, the amount of time that we'll spend talking about AI and machine learning is going to be explosive. We just talked about it as one example. I also think the Internet of Things and connected devices, the advancements in that will be a common topic, as well as, augmented reality and virtual reality. I was blown away by some of the things that I saw on the floor yesterday. Yes. And how is that going to show up in the way that we work, we play, we advertise, and so forth. But more importantly are I think the ethics and just the implications that it's going to have on us as a society as all of these things continue to advance.
It's interesting, and it gets a bit maybe philosophical, but when you're talking about VR and AR, and if people spend more and more of their times in those virtual environments, maybe it changes the way, it may not change the place that they physically live, but it may change the way that they perceive their lives to an extent that they may not feel as connected to their local areas, which may then play back into what it means for you to be locally targeting something.
Yes.
Have you thought much about that?
Yeah, we've seen that today already. Since the pandemic, most people were staying at home and they were buying everything online. And I think marketers immediately thought, well, I need to find them online rather than in the geography where they're going to go to make a trip to a store. But what we actually found was that geography became more important because of the ways that communities were starting to be built and the way that people were working and flocking together. It meant that geography could be harnessed in even more powerful ways than I think people suspected. It is, I think, a myth that geography is necessary only for retail in the marketing world. We've got clients that don't have physical locations, that sell only items online, or software companies where we've introduced using geography to help drive insights to people that you've just, like you just described, and we've been able to deliver on that.
And is there, I wonder, especially because people moved so much during the pandemic, another layer of what I'm just going to coin mental geography where, yeah, I live in this other place, but in my mind, I'm still from Boston, for example, because that's where I grew up.
Yes, I think that's where creative has the power to play. So we know where to get the content and at what time, right place, that we know how all of that works, but I think creative can certainly offset that.
Any other thoughts, and I think you'd have a neat perspective on this, on the future of work? So we've had a couple of years of massive change and fluctuation. Are we all staying home? Are we going to go back to the office? Is it hybrid? And now it just kind of seems like the Wild West. Everyone has an opinion on this. What do you think?
Well, pre-pandemic, believe it or not, we had about 15% of our staff that was remote. As I mentioned, our company was going through a major transformation. We were looking for talent in the cities where we had office locations, and we were looking for intellectual horsepower from cities where we didn't have office locations. And pre-pandemic, everyone was already working on laptops. And so when we had to take everyone remote, it was a challenge, of course, but I don't think the degree of challenge that we experienced looked anything like other companies experienced. So we've been remote since March of 2020. We've learned a lot, we've been optimizing it, and our opinion is this, is that we're gonna have to stay flexible. Employees want flexibility, they see it as a benefit. They also want a place to go and work when they want to. So if I need to practice a business pitch, or I wanna have a team meeting, or I just need to get out of my house and go work somewhere, that we give them the space to do that. I think the other thing in terms of the future of work, in order for this to work and be sustainable, is we have to be able to give our employees support, tools, training, all those things that sometimes are easy to lose when you're working virtually. And then trusting that our employees are going to be productive and that they're going to reach out when they need help. So I'm excited, frankly, to see where it takes us and what it looks like over the next couple of years.
So many ways to work, and thank you, though, for joining us here in person at the C-Space studio. Melanie Rios, Novus Media, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for watching. This is the C-Space studio here at CES 2023. I'm James Kotecki. More great conversations are just ahead. you're back with me, James Kotecki, in the C-Space Studios, sponsored by Salesforce, here at CES 2023. And it's time to talk about the metaverse with Denise Zhang, the Managing Director of Metaverse Continuum Business Group at Accenture. Welcome to the C-Space Studio.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here.
So we've talked about the metaverse with several folks here in the C-Space Studio, but everybody has their own definition of it, and we probably need to start this conversation by just level setting. How do you define what the metaverse means?
Well, from my perspective, the metaverse is really a continuum. It's 2D to 3D, it's immersive, it's gamification, it's blockchain. It's a lot of different technologies coming together to form the next generation of the internet. So we're going to see a lot of new interfaces, much more immersive interfaces, and frankly, a lot of technologies that are enabling this new trend.
So Metaverse Continuum Business Group, the continuum part is right in the name of your title there.
Exactly.
So what are you up to at Accenture? What does your day-to-day look like? What are you doing with clients?
Well, we're helping clients test and learn in the metaverse and understand where they can realize real, true value and how it fits into their strategy. So right now we're seeing a lot of brands engaging with the metaverse, doing experimentation, launching campaigns even. And for a lot of the clients that we're working with, they want to understand what's the value? How do I gain strategic competitive advantage by leveraging the metaverse? And how do I enter?
Is it too early to talk about ROI in a lot of these conversations? Are people really still at that experimental level?
It's a really good question. I think that for many companies, they're already seeing a lot of ROI. And I want to talk about sort of how that's being realized in the consumer space. Obviously, it's a consumer electronics show, but it's also being realized in the enterprise space as well. So take Accenture, for example. We have the largest enterprise metaverse. So we have 150,000 people that have been onboarded into our company as new joiners using the metaverse. And that's because during the pandemic, people were not able to come to our office for the first time. So folks were being onboarded into Accenture as a new joiner in the nth floor, what we call our enterprise metaverse. And we realized true value from that because we were able to show our new people, what does our office look like? Enable those water cooler conversations. And that is really kind of priceless, right, when it comes to creating those bonds, creating that sense of identity within our company. On the consumer side, take Nike. Nike's a great example of a company who's entered the metaverse, experimenting with Web3, and has realized a tremendous amount of revenue from, digital sneakers, NFTs. So value is being realized across the board.
When you're talking about the Accenture metaverse, what was the technology people were using to actually access that? Are they at home with VR headsets on? What does that look like?
Exactly. So we deployed VR headsets to our people, and we also built our own custom environment in AltSpace, and we're actually migrating and experimenting with other metaverse platforms as well. But for some of our people that aren't used to wearing the headset, or they have some limitations that prevent their ability to engage in that way, they can use a 2D screen, and so it is accessible in that realm. And we've been very thoughtful to try and make sure that all people can leverage it.
So how much does the gear, does the equipment matter to what the ultimate vision of the metaverse is? Can people in the future fully realize the metaverse without strapping on a VR headset and a haptic suit?
Absolutely. I haven't put on the haptic suit yet. I don't know if you have. I imagine it would be
Just
a little bit
demos,
uncomfortable at this time. Absolutely. So as I mentioned, we really view this as a continuum of technology, and that it's accessible from a 2D screen all the way to 3D immersive, fully VR, augmented reality, mixed reality. Right now, we're using headsets. We're experimenting with a lot of different headsets, but we're primarily using Oculus right now. And there have been tremendous improvements that we've seen from Oculus Quest to Oculus Quest Pro. And I'm really excited to see sort of what new innovations and frankly some lower price points as well, so it becomes more affordable to more people.
What kind of data do businesses get when they operate in the metaverse? I imagine it's theoretically possible to get data points on every single move that I'm making in this 3D environment, but maybe that's too much data to actually be useful. So how do you think about data in these terms?
There's a lot of data that's accessible and really valuable data to get you much, much closer to the user, to understand, what are their physical reactions, what are their emotional reactions, how do they respond to advertising perhaps that you deliver through these mediums. I think we need to be extraordinarily careful about how we leverage that data, especially in the environment that we're in now where people feel like their data is being exploited. So being super transparent about what data is being collected, how it's being used, and acquiring the consent in order to leverage that data so that companies can really realize the value of user data in the metaverse.
What are the technological issues right now that are preventing the metaverse and the experience of it from getting to whatever the next level is? What are the current biggest hurdles?
Gosh, there are a number of hurdles, as you know. So latency is one of the issues. We need more powerful graphic processing capabilities on device. Another big challenge, which I think actually AI is helping to solve, is creating these really rich, sometimes photorealistic virtual environments. There frankly aren't enough people in this space, 3D artists and others, that are capable of generating these environments. And I think with technology, with artificial intelligence, we talk about ChatGPT all the time. I think your previous speaker was just talking about it. It's one of the hottest, most exciting things right now. But OpenAI has recently developed as well something called Point E, which uses text inputs to generate 3D point cloud imagery in 3 dimensions. So that's going to significantly lower the barrier to creating these environments. And you and I, we can say create a CES Space Studio and perhaps even have this meeting in a virtual environment.
I look forward to that. There is something nice about having people in person though, especially coming out of the pandemic. So we really appreciate you being here for that. You have an international security background, which is cool. Do you ever think about the international boundaries questions when it comes to the metaverse? Do you think about it in those terms at all?
I do think about it in those terms, and sometimes it goes to a slightly more sort of dystopian place, perhaps. I mean, I think of the metaverse as one of those areas where you see, again, a lot of technologies coming together to create it and enable it, but it's technologies where countries, jurisdictions are really battling over who's going to win in the future of this technology. AI being one, immersive interfaces being another, compute capacity, compute power as well. And there's also the blurring of geographic lines. Just as there is blurring between what's physical and what's real, there's blurring of geographic lines as well.
People from different countries can get together in the metaverse and all be in the same shared space.
Exactly. So if you have a user in China who's engaging in a platform, there are very different laws and regulations in China that govern data privacy than in the European Union. So how do you, as a company that's providing a global service, reconcile all of those different regulations and create a seamless experience? That's going to be tricky. It's going to be difficult. So,
Does that point to a future of multiple fractured, walled-off metaverses? Do you see a future of the metaverse? Where do you see that going?
I don't think there's going to be one single metaverse. There are going to be a lot of different virtual platforms, a lot of different metaverse spaces, and they'll operate under different governance rules. Some of them may be decentralized, built on Web3, right? Others may be fully centralized. Some may be walled, some may be open. What I hope, though, is that the standards bodies, the companies that are building the devices, the platforms, especially the largest ones, will come together to agree on a set of standards that make the metaverse interoperable and that allow users to have a much more seamless user experience. And when we asked users, we conducted a global survey, 19 countries, about 18,000 respondents. They said this is really important, that they are able to take their avatars, their identities, their wallets, their objects from one platform to another.
Yes. What's the question that I should ask others about the metaverse here in the C-Space studio?
That's such a good question. I was thinking, what question would be really interesting? I would probably ask people, what do they think the biggest killer app is going to be in the metaverse? Like, what's the one thing that's going to take us over the threshold into making this truly mainstream? We talk about the metaverse a lot today. We have great examples of it, but what's going to make it and bring it to every household in America?
Do you have any thoughts on that yourself? Just pivot
yeah,
the question. I'm kind of a lazy interviewer, right? I'm asking you to ask your own question and then ask it right back to you, but it's a curious question.
So I think affordability is one of them, right? So right now the devices are still kind of expensive, and if we could drive down that cost, more people could get access to it. I think the second thing is actually around digital safety. A lot of families, see their kids spending more time on gaming, spending more time on social media, and wondering, is it safe for my children? So if we could put in some norms, some code of conduct, practices in place to create that digitally safe environment for people of all ages, and then address that affordability question, then the metaverse could be in every household.
Well, come back and talk to us again, please, here or in the metaverse. Denise Zhang at Accenture. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, James. Great to be here.
And thank you so much for watching. This is the C-Space Studio at CES 2023. I'm James Kotecki, where great conversations are just ahead. Welcome back once again to the C-Space Studio here at CES 2023. I'm James Kotecki, joined by Ashley Menschner, the SVP of Media at the Ad Council.
Yes.
Welcome to the C-Space Studio.
Thank you so much for having me. I saw you on day one, which feels like a lifetime ago.
It feels like so long ago, and there's so much that happens at CES. But first, let's start the conversation by just level setting the Ad Council.
Yes.
We've seen the logo. I have a vague understanding that it exists. What is the Ad Council? How do you define it?
You definitely have seen the logo. The Ad Council is the leading nonprofit that uses the power of communications to drive social change. So we work cross-sector, bringing together the media, advertising, tech, entertainment, industries to address the most pressing social issues of our time. So whether that's addiction, gun safety, soon to be mental health, it's really rallying the industry behind causes.
And this is a kind of a collaborative effort that the industry started many years ago, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the history?
Yes, started in 1942, was originally known as the War Advertising Council.
Okay.
And we've been around, it was just galvanizing the industry.
So it's like Madison Avenue types, like trying to figure out how they're going to help the war effort?
Yes,
Okay.
and everyone wants to give back. Everyone wants to do good.
So
it's,
tell us,
I like to say it's the best job in the world.
and give us a few of your greatest hits, because people have definitely seen some of these ads. They know them.
People know Smokey Bear. I mean, how can you not know Smokey Bear? Crash Test Dummies. More recently, Love Has No Labels, our Emmy Award-winning campaign with the dancing skeletons. You've probably seen that ad. So some of the greatest.
So what is keeping you busy as you look at 2023?
What is not keeping us busy? We, coming out of our COVID vaccine education campaign last year, we're going to take all the learnings from that coalition model and again galvanize the industry behind the next big pillar initiative, which is going to be mental health for us. And so we just announced the largest single gift in Ad Council history with the Huntsman Institute, Mental Health Institute, with a leading gift of $15 million. And we have a goal of raising $65 million over the next 7 years to address the mental health crisis coming out of the pandemic. Over 50% of Americans are saying that they're struggling with a mental health condition, but yet only about 48% of them are doing anything to get help. And so we have a few campaigns that are going to fall under this pillar that are already on our docket. So our Seize the Awkward campaign, that is youth suicide prevention, our veteran crisis prevention campaign, and middle school mental health, which targets parents. I don't know if you're a parent, but
I am.
Targeting, obviously you have, I don't know how old your kids are, but middle schoolers really struggling. And so and they don't want to talk about their mental health. So we're using the power of music to get them talking about their mental health. And then we're going to be launching a new effort targeting adults, and specifically with a focus on men and Black and Hispanic communities. And that will be launching sometime in June. So that will be keeping us very busy. We are dedicated to the next, I would say, decade of bringing this issue to life and really having a big impact.
And what's the scope of the different places that you're advertising? Are you kind of everywhere, digitally, billboards,
everywhere.
TV,
Yes.
Snapchat, whatever it is?
Yes, everywhere there's advertising, we are, or anywhere people are consuming content. So obviously the big platform partners, Amazon, Meta, Google, are all of our partners, but also the little up-and-coming gaming companies that are testing out advertising in their product, we will work with them as well. So, yeah.
So do you even think, we talk about gaming quite a bit here in the C-Space studio. Do you even think about in-game advertising? Do you think about influencers? Do you think about ways to make the advertising seem more native and seamless?
Yes. Yeah, what we used to be, again, back Smokey Bear, you'd see the television spot of Smokey on TV, and people think of the Ad Council.
Right.
We've evolved so much, and it goes much beyond just the TV spot in terms of working with creators. We did a Twitch live stream this year for our Veterans Crisis campaign for a Twitch streamer who was playing a game who was also a veteran, just talking about the issue and his struggle with PTSD. So things like that. And another great example of using tech for good is Amazon. If you go home right now and ask Amazon, what is love? They integrated our diversity and inclusion messaging into the product. So it'll give you stories of what love means to people. Wow. And those are just great. And then direct to our Love Has No Labels campaign to give people resources. So we're trying to use every platform organically and show up in a way that, feels natural.
Wow. I was going to say, what is love, baby, don't hurt me. That was the first thing. That was the first thing that came to mind. I know you worked for HBO before the Ad Council. Did you pick up on storytelling ideas there that you now apply here?
Yeah, absolutely. I was at HBO right when HBO Go was coming to market, and we were trying to figure out how do we bring this streaming product to life. And it was just a great place to work under strong leadership. But I wanted to take all of those marketing learnings and digital experience I had, and then apply it for good and really do something that I felt passionate about. So it brought me to the best job in the world. I really love what I do. So yeah, it's been great.
Speaking of applying learnings, you mentioned that you're going to be applying learnings to this mental health campaign that you learned from the vaccine campaign, the pandemic. What are some of the things that you did learn from that? I mean, I imagine that was a massive effort.
It was incredible. And just seeing, like I said, the industry come together. I mean, we had brands knocking on our door asking how they could help. So it was really just interesting to let the industries lead and come to us with ideas. But also a big learning we took from that was the need for the air game and the ground game. So really having the national communications program, but then also working in local communities. So we worked with, we had a national faith council that we went and kind of talked to pastors and local communities to really reach Black audiences. So we're trying to find ways to get more hyper-local focus. So that will be some of our learnings, and just, bringing together the brightest minds in the business.
You mentioned that you're everywhere that there is advertising. Are there new frontiers of advertising that maybe you're not in or you're about to get in that you're just kind of eyeing?
Yes. Obviously, thinking about metaverse, Web3, and what are the implications there for social good. So my colleague, actually, who I was here with, was telling me this story yesterday about how she was in Horizon Worlds and how she met someone who is a nurse in avatar form. Obviously, the privacy was there, but talking about how she had taken the day off because she was struggling and she was taking a mental health day to come to this concert hall in Horizon Worlds to just feel better. And so my colleague was saying, God, wouldn't it be amazing if the Ad Council could have resources or build communities in these spaces for people to come together and talk about what they're going through. So we're looking at the metaverse. We're trying to figure out what's going to stick, and what the applications are for our campaigns.
That's interesting, because to get a little bit philosophical about it, if you're talking about something like preventing forest fires, that's a physical thing that's happening in the physical world. But if you're talking about mental health, it's not only that the Ad Council has the opportunity to raise awareness around that, but an advertisement, a piece of media, a piece of content can actually help change someone's mental state. Being in the metaverse can help change someone's mental state. So this is something where that you can maybe even be more proactive than maybe you've even been in the past.
Yeah, and I think people have the more feel more at ease talking about things when it's their avatar and not their true self. So we can help them and kind of show up, where they are, and then hopefully they take that off platform and they kind of feel better going back to their, real life. So we're excited about it. I think there's a lot of interesting things that are going to happen.
So much change in the history of the organization, so much change in just the past couple of years. Is there something that you think technology will not change as we look at in the next 10 years?
I think just that human, we think that our campaigns, you're going to start first and foremost by looking at audiences and really understanding what you're trying to accomplish and what the goals and needs of them are. So I don't think the need to look at what you're actually trying to accomplish and who, look at the communities, what they're trying to tell you. And I don't think technology is going to change that. You're going to have to start human-centered and start, with the people that you're trying to reach first. Yeah.
Beyond the actual day-to-day work that you do, what else inspires you?
I think what inspires me is just the communities that we are trying to reach and just everyday people. Interactions like this. I was just thinking about the Damar Hamlin stuff that happened last weekend. And I was thinking about how since that's happened, $7 million have been raised for his toy drive for kids. And I'm like, people want to do good. People innately, I think, have this one ability to give back. And so people inspire me. And I think just changing the world for better,
Well, thank you for helping to inspire us, Ashley Menschner, the Ad Council.
Thank you so much for having.
And thanks for being here. And thank you for being here. You're watching the C-Space Studios, sponsored by Salesforce here at CES 2023. I'm James Kotecki. Keep it here because more great conversations are just ahead.